Entangled empathy. It was a new phrase to me. And since I've read it, I've been intrigued and wanting to head that way. I feel like an alien in my own culture sometimes. Do you? I feel like it doesn't fit me, and it fails to create a healthy environment for humans in general. There's such a focus on making money, on gathering more toys and more stuff, on status, on fame, on competition. And there's that planned obsolescence. Things cannot be repaired, but rather only be replaced with new ones. It's such a throwaway culture. So how did we create a culture that feels so alien and seems to become more and more strange? I think part of it is just how big we are. We have so many humans now, and it has affected the systems, and it has a huge impact on our lives. Think about social media and how people can be crushed by responses from people who don't even know them. The trolls can do what they do because they keep their identity secret. Anonymity allows its own kind of cruelty. I believe human beings do best when we can know each other. And when human groups are very large, the ability to do so is hard. When we know each other personally, we don't feel obligated. If I know someone, I don't want to see that person suffering. But when cities and countries are large, that we never see how our own behavior affects others, then we are just less likely to be concerned. And I don't think it's because we're mean or uncaring. I think we actually have limited capacity to care for so many others that we don't know. There isn't a moral obligation to care for the other in our society. In fact, many laws have been created to create room for immoral choices, choices that benefit those in power and hurt others. Think about how the shareholders are held more important than the workers. Our lives are entangled, but what about the empathy? In huge groups, we cannot know the leaders that we are choosing very well. What we learn about them could be propaganda or lies, and we don't have lived experience with that person. When groups are small, we likely directly know the people we are choosing to lead from within our group. We know who would make a good leader. In the Minangkabau tribe, in the islands on the northeastern side of Australia, the men do hold the religious and political offices, but they are chosen by and can be removed by a group of women elders. Talk about checks and balances. In a society like ours, where rising to power is a combination of privilege and personal desire, it is a more self-serving by design. I want to pause here to appreciate the exception. There are those who take leadership positions because they truly want to serve people and create a better society. There are definitely many. David Brooks wrote in an article in the New York Times recently that was called "The Quiet Magic of Middle Managers." Yes, middle managers. He calls them the unsung heroes of our age because, he says, amid a wider atmosphere of division, distrust, bitterness, and exhaustion, these managers are the frontline workers who try to resolve tensions and keep communities working, their teams united, and relationships afloat. These members of the managerial class are the invisible glue that gives us a shot at sticking together. He's talking about ethical leadership. Think Ted Lasso, who knows that growth for the people you work with is the main job, not the product you are paid to produce. And we can't do this without relationship. And relationship has much more of a chance to happen when the groups are smaller and people can know each other. So there are forces running against our hero middle managers all the time. They are the forces of capitalism and patriarchal systems. Underneath every department, at every corporation, and every team, at every nonprofit is the truth that our society constantly extracts from and overuses the Earth's resources and uses, even abuses people with less power. The connection between the abuse of the Earth and the abuse of people in our systems is examined in a field called ecofeminism. Ecofeminist author Greta Gard says, "How we treat the Earth and how we treat other people is inextricably linked." And she talks about entangled empathy. We are entangled in these large systems where our leaders become overwhelmed. Systems that are forced to work for large numbers don't always scale well. The situation is true for our city council. In Houston, each council person represents more than 200,000 people. There's no way that a city council person can start to know their constituents in any kind of real way. So how can there be empathy or even service for citizens? The world population numbers show us more. In 1950, 74 years ago, the world population was about 2.5 billion. As a reminder, 1 billion is 1,000 times a million. So 2.5 billion is already a lot of humans. But the Earth is a big place. In just 7 decades, or about 3 generations, we have more than 8 billion people. 3 generations, more than triple the population. This huge change is not only affecting us within our civilizations and our leadership and our culture, like I talked about, but it is affecting our physical Earth's ability to sustain us. Perhaps the pushing to the brink of sustainability was not inevitable. There were times when human beings used sustainable practices, and if we had continued more sustainable practices as our numbers grew, maybe we wouldn't be creating so much carbon and warming trend and weather catastrophes. But the growth and the practices are intertwined. It's not that simple, is it? And that's another piece of the story. One reason the population has grown is due to human beings having enough control over the food supply, access to energy to do work, and have comforts, and then we increase our offspring and we live longer. There was an article in the New York Times I read a few years ago that said that successful civilizations often become unsuccessful over time due to their own success. So the world population is still growing, but it has slowed quite a bit. And that, I think, is good news for our Earth. And I care deeply about the Earth. Of course, I care also about humans, but sparrows and bees as well. I care about even possums and snakes and pecan trees and flowers. It is natural, of course, for us to care about ourselves as a species. But I'd like to propose that we find a balance each day when we awaken to think about our deep connections to these other beings. And I've been thinking about plants lately. They are just amazing. Humans cannot do what plants can do. Plants can be dormant in the form of a seed. That seed is just lying there in the dirt. And it's a next generation that just hangs on until it's the right time for flourishing. Some plants can create a blossom that stuns the senses with beauty and fragrance. Plants are not a lower life than human. They're not. I've said it. So I want to be more like a plant, more like a tree. So this year, I'm going to really, really pay attention to plants. I'm going to say no aloud to those daily messages that I get that humans are the most important beings on the planet and should be able to take whatever we want for our own creature comforts and use up our Mother Earth. I'm going to see ways that I can be more like a plant, using their lives and amazing capabilities as inspiration for my life and my choices. Our Unitarian Universalist principle, the seventh one, is reverence for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Interdependent. We cannot exist without each other. Web. Remember the web up here, how there's all those different connections at different points. And we are all connected, like our choir sang earlier. Of which we are a part has at least two sides. One is that we have the amazing privilege to be as amazing as the plants, or connected to the plants. And the other side is that what we do has consequences, and we owe it to our plant and animal siblings to get it right. This is entangled empathy. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote in his book, Love Letter to the Earth, the Earth has already experienced a lot of suffering in the past from which she has managed to recover. She has experienced natural disasters such as collisions with other planets, as well as severe periods of drought, forest fires, and earthquakes, and yet she has been able to restore herself after all those events. Now we are putting so much strain on the Earth by polluting the atmosphere, warming the planet, and poisoning the oceans that she can't heal on her own. We cannot just rely on her to take care of us. We need to take care of her. We need to realize that the conditions to restore the balance don't come from outside of us. They come from inside of us, from our own mindfulness, from our own level of awareness. Our own awakened consciousness is what can heal the earth. Thich Nhat Hanh's words speak to me. Like so many other changes we must do, inner awareness is the key. Our awareness is the magic. We are aware of the magic of other species. We have gratitude and reverence. When we're tuned in, we can regularly feel appreciation for plants and animals and the earth, not forget our interdependence. We regularly sing in the children's closing circle, "The earth is our mother," like we did this morning, although it's a different version. But it says, we must take care of her. She will take care of us. It is both. We've got to do our part. But what to do with the very large forces that are against our values? The culture that feels alien, that doesn't fit. The way we humans are not our best selves in really large groups that we find ourselves in. I end with a few ideas that might resonate with you, that might fit into your life and call your values to life. Number one, read something inspiring as a morning or evening ritual each day. And I can recommend the book, Earthbound, Daily Meditations for All Seasons by Brian Nelson. His reading for today's date, April 21st, says this: bamboo records found in the tomb of an ancient Chinese emperor reveal that the solar eclipse took place on this date in 899 BC. The ancients wrote, "The sun rose twice today." The eclipse was a marvel to people at that time, yet the wonder was greater than they knew. They could never have imagined that nearly 3 millennia later, a team of historians, linguists, cosmologists, and computer programmers would work together to verify their observations. With every orbit of the spheres, with every turn of the heavens, we are connected in awe to generations long gone and generations to come. Look to the skies and to the ties that bind us through time itself. Reading something each day that connects us to the earth and to ancient peoples is inspiring and makes us pay attention to different things throughout the day. Number two, get together with others. Do something meaningful together. something that changes you, something that supports your community, and do so over time. That's how we develop relationships and grow. These are also the people we will depend upon to jointly solve problems and to offer support when we are faltering. When we meet together regularly, that's when things really start to matter, and that's when we are able to do more collectively. It's also how we stay engaged. The doing something together is one of the reasons that I love church and Unitarian Universalism. This is where I feel like I can find my values being upheld, and it's where I walk with others to try to live our best lives, lives that feel right. Number 3, and last, pay attention to our siblings, the other animals and plants. Let's consider our choices and how they affect the others on the planet and the planet herself. The systems we live in are truly and absolutely against us, so we must be careful not to overwhelm ourselves, but choose something and do it regularly. As a bonus, do it with a friend. You can buy local grown foods, refuse single-use items, build a small garden, compost and learn how it works, eat mostly plants, learn about permaculture, join our climate action team, plant trees with our church at least twice per year. We've been doing it for 5 years. Go on a walk with your children or grandchildren every day if you can, or as often as you can in your neighborhood, paying close attention to any animals and plants you see. Jaime Gonzalez, a local plant expert and environmental activist, says that children knowing their own natural environment is not only an important key to shifting our future connection to our local habitat, but brings great joy and grounding to children and families. I have often done this walk, both when my children were young and still, where I remember S's that help me focus and stay aware. The first one, what is in my sight? The second one, what do I sense on my skin? The third, what's in the sky? That reminds us to look up and see what might be happening there. What is my stance? So we become aware of our body in relation to the earth as we're walking. What do I smell? What are the sounds that I hear? Even in the city, you can hear some amazing nature sounds. Awareness in the moment is also a way to reduce stress and, of course, be present. So, sight, sense, the sky, my stance. What do I smell? What are the sounds that I hear? Many forces are against us. And while sometimes necessary, fighting is exhausting, and it also causes the other side to fight. I want to spend the next year in nurturing mode instead. Like the middle managers, fostering growth and providing support, making choices that lean into relationships that can bring joy and feelings of closeness and meaning. Knowing that smaller communities do make a difference, at least in their own spaces. Sometimes we can make a difference within our community by living the way we want the world to be. This is where we live out our entangled empathy with other people and the earth and move towards justice and thriving. May it be so.